y'all. There is a new schedule, and the addition to the schedule is, I believe it's February 18th, is that correct? It's the Sunday before the Saturday that we go meet with the bishop at Prince of Peace. I got an email from the diocese asking that we do a sending ceremony. Thanks, Mike. That we do a sending ceremony. And so we're doing that the preceding Sunday at the 10 o'clock Mass. And so that'll be the first time that you'll likely need your godparents and your sponsors in the sending ceremony. And I didn't make copies of the sending ceremony yet. We've not done that here before, so I got it and the 3 scrutinies for the catechumens, and I sent all of them to Father Tuso, and he said they look great, so I can make copies. So, I'm not going to give you all of them like right now, but I'll give it to you like the sending ceremony first, so you can kind of see what it is before you go, and then you can just bring it with you the day of the service. Which brought Isabella had questions about godparents and brought up the question about sponsors. So I gave you a handout on that, and Father Tuso said that was all right too. So you only have to have one godparent, and it lists the requirements there, for what they need to be. They need to be somebody who's a participating Catholic, which means that they go to Mass every week, and that they're active in the church. They have to be at least 16 years of age. They have to have received all 3 of the sacraments of initiation, okay? Baptism, confirmation, and Holy Eucharist. And they if they're single, they can't be living with somebody. I mean, it lists all of them. Can I borrow yours for just a second? Because I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. Godparent or sponsors, Catholic in good standing, living the gospel in their daily and personal lives, must be 16, have proper aptitude and attention to assume the role. I said that. Catholics married outside the church, or Catholics who choose to cohabitate outside the sacrament of marriage, are not permitted to be godparents or sponsors. Any Catholic who's abandoned the faith, even if they're not active members in another Christian church or community, may not serve as a godparent, Christian witness, or sponsor for confirmation. If you do want to do the traditional route of having 2 godparents, at least one of them needs to meet all of the criteria listed here. They gotta be Catholic and everything I've already mentioned. But the second person can be a Christian witness for baptism, provided one godparent is a practicing Catholic. A Christian witness may serve as a second godparent. A Christian witness is a validly baptized non-Catholic who practices their faith in Christ in a visible and sincere manner. So, you still can have 2 godparents, or you can have 2 that meet the criteria if you so choose. But you have to have at least one. Just like, you have to have a sponsor, and you normally just have the one sponsor. Any questions about that? So you need to be giddying up on that. And then the last thing was just that long prayer, which is the Litany of Humility, that I thought you guys had in your prayer section, which you did not. And I said I owed it to you, so that I would make copies and hand them out for this time. So that's it. Any questions about any of that? Nope. It's all you, Chris. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. Let's start with a prayer before we start into the talk. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Dearest Jesus, in this world where people are looking for what life can give them, let us prayerfully open our hearts and ears to learn about the love you have called us for in your 2 sacraments of service, matrimony and holy orders. Let us be open and obedient to your calling in our lives that we may be people of self-giving love and service to either our spouse and children or to the service of teaching, guidance, and the offering of sacraments to the body of Christ, your church. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Well, again, welcome everybody. I'm glad y'all could make it tonight. I'm not sure why this topic, I had it last year as well, so I'm not sure why exactly, but maybe there's some reason, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into it, I don't know, but it is, as y'all know, or maybe I may have mentioned it, I didn't grow up in the Catholic Church. I grew up in the Baptist Church, but I became Catholic after about 27 years of marriage, and my wife and I will next December will be 36 years. She was Catholic. She's from the Philippines, and we were married in the Catholic Church at Clemson. And I think we were the first graduate students. At least that's what we were told. We were the first graduate students to have been married there in Clemson at the little parish. And if you ever in Clemson, I highly recommend, if you can, go by and just look at it. It's a beautiful parish. It's like ours here. It's just a beautiful parish. But we're going to talk about matrimony and holy orders this evening. We all know the familiar words to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. They're part of the time-honored traditional vows of marriage, and they form the cornerstone of the Catholic rite of matrimony. But the wedding ceremony is just the beginning of the sacrament of matrimony. A marriage is shaped day by day as the husband and wife grow in love, trust, and mutual self-giving over their lifetimes. Marriage takes a lot of work. Marriage takes a lot of work.
Marriage takes a lot of work.
Marriage takes a lot of work. If I've heard people say, well, we've just never argued, we've never gotten into any kind of fights or anything, that's a lie. I don't believe that.
Either that or I want to take your pulse.
Yeah, or your
Or
disc.
they have Alzheimer's and no
Yeah,
memory.
they don't remember it.
Right.
I tease about it, but it really does take a lot of work. Who all in here is married?
I was married.
You were, okay. No. Am I right? It takes a lot of work. And, after 36 years, almost 36 years, I'm still learning. You will learn, after, it doesn't matter how long you're married, you'll still learn, and most of that is going to be stuff that you learn about yourself and how to deal with things. It takes a lot of work, but God will give us, if we ask Him, God will, and if we ask for God's help, He will help us. He will help us through it. I can tell you, He will. According to Professor Scott Stanley at the University of Denver, a young couple marrying for the first time today has a lifetime divorce risk of, what do y'all think, how many marriages, what percentage do you think of marriages that take place today end up in divorce, not making it?
64%.
I was gonna say 65.
It could be that high. I mean, the stats that I've seen is about 50%, but it could be higher. Even if it's 50%, that's a lot of sadness there. All in all, living in an authentic Catholic marriage in today's world is a real challenge. That's why matrimony is a sacrament of service. Through the graces offered by the sacrament, Jesus gives the strength to love our spouse as Christ does and offer our own life to our spouse as a witness of that love. Okay. At this, did everybody get a chance to watch the video? It was a pretty good video. I hope you got to watch it. So, before we go any further, questions? Anybody have questions about the video?
Yeah, I have a couple, but honestly less than usual because I went through marriage prep with my wife last year. We got, I forget the word, but marriage recognized by the church.
Mm-hmm.
Convalidation.
Convalidation, right. So we had to watch this series called Beloved on Formed. And I think it's by the Augustine Institute as well. Like all the same people are in it. So,
Yeah. You're like, oh, I know that.
but it was like a 14 or 15 episode series, and it was really great. And I recommend that everyone watch it if you.
What's it called?
Beloved.
Beloved.
But it answered all the questions I could have had.
And it's on Formed?
It is.
It's on Formed.
But as I watched the video, some other random questions popped in my head. One of them is related to if each sacrament has a substance, a form, what are those when it comes to marriage?
If each sacrament has a substance or a form, what are those when it comes to marriage?
Yeah, there's a physical part and I forget the words for it, like a spiritual part.
Can you elaborate? I'm not sure I understand your question exactly.
Yeah, like in Eucharist, the bread is the physical part.
Right.
Right. So what's like the physical part of the marriage sacrament? Is that the wedding rings themselves, or is that the ceremony?
Well, I'll tell you what I think about this. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong on this. I think the rings and the ceremony and all the things that they're bringing, these are things that have through the years become traditional things that have been brought into marriage. I'm not sure that the ring, it would be considered as a physical part of it. I think bringing the physical part of it is the man and the husband and the wife themselves. They're bringing themselves into the marriage, completely giving each other to each other. I don't know if that's a good way to answer that. Yes.
I looked it up, because I didn't know either. The matter is the mutual consent of the couple and their promise to live together as husband and wife in a lifelong union. And the form are actually the spoken vows. I
Spoken
gave
vows.
you, and the I do's, in response to that. So they're the form and the manner. And the minister of the marriage, I actually do know that one, I don't have to look that up. It's actually the husband and wife. Yeah, the husband and wife are the actual ministers of the sacrament of marriage.
So would that be considered the physical part of it? Is that?
No, they said it differently. I would have assumed that it was the husband and wife, and perhaps even the husband and wife would be, I would say, the matter, and the form would be the vows.
Yeah.
But she's getting something different when she looks it up.
Yeah, they're saying that it is, the matter consists of the consent, along with the desire to live together in unity.
The matter.
Well, it's the consummation of the marriage. Can't forget the consummation
Oh,
part.
The consent
okay.
and the consummation is the matter,
So
and the form are the vows.
I don't think sort of answered your question.
Yeah, no, that's what I was looking for. I couldn't remember the word. So form and the two things there. I guess that kind of leads into like a comment, I guess. When you said marriage being a sacrifice, right? And the video highlighted really well how it's supposed to mirror the sacrifice of Christ on the cross and everything else. I remember when I had watched one of the Beloved videos and it really clicked for me was when they said the purpose of marriage is like to give yourself up to your spouse, right? And you're providing for them, you're helping them grow spiritually. And I thought, well, that is so much better than any job I've ever had. You know, forget going to work. Like, you're raising a family or guiding someone through faith. That's really powerful. And that's, when you think vocation, right, your purpose, now it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Your vocation is to be a father, a husband, all these different things. And like, that's just such a powerful thought.
It is powerful. And you know, I asked a while ago what percentage of marriages failed, and you have to ask the question in those situations. And I'm not saying this covers all of them, because there's things that happen that people just, they cannot stay together for one reason or another. But if both the husband and the wife look at it from what you just said, where they're giving to each other, and they're actually putting that kind of at the top of their life, how many of those marriages would have never got to that point? I mean, it's sort of, I don't know if this is the right word to use exactly, but it's the only one I can think of. It's sort of, it's almost like a selfishness in a way on
That's exactly.
on the part of the two. You know, they're not putting the other one first. They're not.
It's all about making themselves happy.
Right, it's all about, and
Yeah.
I've got something on our refrigerator at home, and it says something to the effect of, a good marriage is where one mate thinks that they got the better deal or something like that. And if, you know, both are thinking that, they're both, you know, it brings them closer to each other. I don't know if it makes any sense, but, you know, if you think about it, it's kind of like that, so.
But I'd say 12 years ago, Steve and I almost got divorced. We weren't going to church. I wasn't a practicing Catholic. Bottom line is, in a nutshell, we didn't have God in our relationship. He wasn't a priority.
Mhm.
He was, that triangle didn't exist.
Mhm.
So it was falling apart. And
Mhm.
once we both came back together, realized that God is the foundation,
Mhm.
I started going back to church. Things are better than ever. You can't do it without having God as that foundation.
Exactly. That sums this whole thing up. It really
In
will.
reality, you can't do anything if God is not at the center of your life.
Right, that's
That
right.
is the way your life is supposed to be lived.
Right.
Whether you're single, married, widowed, whatever your station in life is, God is supposed to be the center of it.
All right.
And you hear so many times people, Catholics, supposedly Catholics, that they don't get married in church because they don't want to be bothered with the prep. We used to call them pre-Cana conferences. But they don't want to attend the marriage preparation classes that the church requires.
Mhm.
It's just too much. It's just, they don't want to be bothered with it. That's aggravating. That's stupid. Blah 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 blah.
Mhm.
And then there's no wonder why the divorce rate is so high.
Right.
And it's as high among Catholics as it is among non-Catholics. And it's because they're starting out from a very selfish point.
Mhm.
They're not willing to make the sacrifice, to go to the classes, to learn about what marriage is. Because if you don't go to those marriage prep classes, you will not know what marriage is. Because where else are you going to learn? Certainly not from any television program or movie or anything that the world is showing you is not going to tell you that.
Right.
Where else have you heard, anywhere, have you heard that marriage is supposed to be a mutual giving and a sacrifice, and that you're supposed to love your spouse as Christ loved the church? That means give your life for your spouse if necessary. You're not gonna hear that anywhere else. And so when you get into the actual marriage, you're gonna be lost.
And you have to get into a feeling for yourself of not expecting for yourself to get praise or put your again, if you do that, if you take that tact about it, and you're just doing stuff because you want to be seen or you want to get praise from your husband or your wife or whatever, or that's kind of, if you think about it, that's selfish on your part, because again, you're putting the light on yourself, and it's supposed to be where we're both are they love each other and they want the best for each other and they want to do for each other, and they care for each other more than they care for themselves.
On top of that, you always hear happy wife, happy life, when
Yeah.
it should be happy spouse, happy house.
Happy wife, happy life ain't always so. Happy spouse, happy house, however, yes, it could be. Because, like when my wife and myself, I have learned, and it took me a while to learn this, but I have learned my wife is right about a lot of stuff. She's not always right, but she is right about a lot of stuff, and I have learned to back away from and rather, before I say something, I'll back away from it and think about it a little bit and think about what she said, and I truly have learned she is right about a lot of stuff, and it over time it makes it easier, if I keep an open mind and and it's not all, people are going to have arguments. If you're married, you're going to have arguments. It's not, just because you get married doesn't mean everything's going to be perfect and roses. That's what, unfortunately, a lot of people, not just kids, adults, when they have gotten married, they think, everything's going to be perfect from now on. No, God never promised us that He never promised us an easy life. He never promised us a happy marriage. But but as long as we put Him first and let Him guide us, you cannot go wrong. You just can't. So, you were talking about a while ago, Jesus gave us the sacrament of marriage. Why did He give us the sacrament of marriage?
Because He said that man should not be alone.
Man should not be alone. Exactly. That's exactly right. And also because we can't do it on our own.
Right.
We cannot do it on our own. As human beings, we just can't do it on our own. We don't have we're not built to do it on our own. We have to depend on God to help us through it. And I've asked God many, many times, please help me. And one of the things that I do in the morning when I go to pray, I ask for patience and wisdom in what I'm gonna be doing that day, and the people I'm gonna be come in contact with, and especially with my wife. And as we've gone, as our we've gone further into our, get more and more years, you just kind of learn to let God take the reins and let Him deal with the things, and just say, I'm going to give this to you. And He'll take care of it one way or the other. He will take care of it. He will not ignore you. You might not get what you want. You might get what you want. But God will, he will take care of it one way or the other. Okay, anyway, so, sorry, what, other questions?
Yeah, the video didn't touch on this, and I don't know really how to ask this question, but like, if God's purpose, design for us, is to be faithful, fruitful, all those things, specifically the fruitful have children thing, is it wrong for someone to live a single life and not seek marriage specifically?
No. I don't think so. I don't think it's wrong for
God
some.
doesn't call everybody to the same vocation.
Right. Right. And, there's, let me find it here. Being fruitful is, we have to be open to being fruitful, let me find that. Bear with me a minute. There's something I wanted to read. Yeah. And it touches on your question. 4 aspects of matrimony as a sacrament: free, total, faithful, and fruitful. But to answer your question, I don't think that's a wrong thing for if somebody decides, I don't want to get married. But understand, if you do that, God's not giving you permission to go and act as though you're married, if you know what I mean. To run around and jump in bed with that's not what he's not saying that. But there are some people that just choose not to, they don't want to get married for one reason or another, and that's not wrong. That's not wrong. That's just like you say, a personal choice.
And if you are a God-centered person, okay, what you should be praying for God to show you what His plan is for your life, and you should be asking Him, where do you want me, Lord? Married, single, religious? Where do you want me? Because God does have a plan for you. I mean, and Scripture tells us that. Before I knit you in your mother's womb, I knew you. There's all sorts of scriptures letting you know that God has a plan for you, and it's not for your. God has a plan for you, and it's not for your. It's for your good. It's for your good. I can't remember the exact words, but anyway, God does have a plan for you, and the key to finding happiness in life really is, and this is for you guys that are young and haven't done anything yet, you're still in school, you need to be getting a relationship with the Lord, you need to be praying, and you need to be asking God, what have you planned for me? Because you're never going to be completely fulfilled if you're not in sync with what God has planned for you. That'll be the very best thing that you could be, is what God has chosen for you. Ask Him.
I was just going to say, how many, you don't have to show your hands, but how many of us have actually taken the time to ask God what He wants of us? What does He want?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a real thing. He's there, and he's knocking on the door, but He's not going to force Himself on you. You have to ask.
Yes.
And you have to be open, and He will let you know. He will let you know in one way or another, and it's different for different people.
Yeah.
But how many of us have asked? I know when I was younger,
Yeah.
I didn't do that until when I was when I got ready to get married. I was in I met my wife in graduate school, but we didn't get married right then. But I do know that after I started going to the Catholic Church with her, it kind of occurred to me, you know, I need to ask God, what does He want me to do? I know what I wanted to do, but how many of us really ask Him?
God has given you free will.
He's given us free will.
You decide that, no, God, that's not my plan.
Yeah.
You know, he'll
Yeah, I
let
mean,
you know.
and so many times, you know, we choose we think we know better than what, we think we know better. I'm speaking from Chris's, what Chris has done. Chris sometimes has thought that he knows better than God, and, you know, it didn't always work out the best way, but if you haven't asked Him, ask Him. And do it in a quiet place where you can be open to Him. So, okay. Other questions?
Yeah, so building on that, some people's vocation is the married life, some people's vocation is like the priesthood. Where do nuns fall in that? They weren't touched on in the video.
Nuns. Well, I know. Some nuns, I guess, have been, you know, they've opened up to God, and these are women that ask the Lord what did He want them to do. There's some women who, have actually, you know, my wife tells me that if I should pass away, she might become a nun. I don't know. You know, I don't know.
There's an order she can join.
There's an order.
Yes,
I
there's an order she can join.
I said, well, you know, I'm not going to pass any time.
But basically, they're just women who are called to religious life.
Yeah.
Like a man would be called to the priesthood or to holy orders, be it, you know, the diaconate or the priesthood.
It's what they felt they were led to do.
Women can be called to religious
Yeah, it's
life.
how
And
God.
they can serve, you know, gosh, there are thousands of different
Right.
orders for nuns, but they can be teachers, they can
They
work
can
in
be
hospitals
nurses,
as nurses, they can, you know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, there's a lot of-
Each order has its own charism.
yeah.
They work in different, you know, segments
They
of
work in
society.
different areas of service, I
Right.
guess.
And it's that stems from asking God what He wants. You know, what is His plan for you? What are you calling me to? And if you're serious and you're open to it and you really want to know, He will respond to you. And some people are called to the religious life, and you know they're called to devote their life to God.
Yeah, I don't
For
think
whatever reason.
any of the nuns, just all of a sudden one day said, today I will be a nun. I think they were led, you know, they asked a question, and they searched it, and they want to know what God wanted them to do. So,
Yeah.
same way, you know, as with a priest or
Yeah.
whatever. So.
Well, I just want to interject something in here. It's back on the 14th, so it's several weeks ago, but Father Mike did a Sunday homily on the Ascension app, and it was really, really good. I'll try to remember the name of it, and let y'all know what it is, because it's longer than what we could just show in class, but it really was good, and it was about making decisions and discerning, you know, what God's calling for you in your life, and it's more than I can go into, but one of the points that I just wanted to share was that God always meets you where you're at, and if you're trying to, you know, figure out what God's perfect plan for your life is because you don't want to screw it up, well, the reality is, you know, you already have screwed it up, because every time we sin, you know, we go against, you know, what God's perfect plan in our life was. You know, kind of like, you know, everything after the fall of the Garden of Eden, you know, that was God's perfect plan. So take some of the pressure off of yourself for, you know, finding the perfect plan. But he gave an example of this girl that was, you know, at the university with him, and she was trying to discern, and, you know, everything looked like God was probably calling her to the religious life, okay? You know, just in her prayer life, and, you know, how much she loved the Lord and everything. And then she ended up getting pregnant. And, she and the father got married, and, they have, beautiful family now, and, so, at one point, it looked like, God was calling her one way, but that, every day you wake up, God meets you where you're at, and so, he met her where she was at, and now, she's got this beautiful family, and now that is, where she's meant to be. So God never gives up on you, I guess is the point.
Okay. Any other questions?
We're done.
Anybody else have any questions? No? Okay. Dakota, could I get you to read that passage from Mark? It's Mark chapter 10, verses 6 through 9, please. Thank you.
But from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined with his wife. And the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, no human being must separate.
Thank you. That sums up marriage right there. Okay. That's God's plan right there. It's a small amount of verses, but it says a lot. I have had somebody ask me one time who was, they hadn't gotten married yet, but they were thinking about getting married, and they asked me if I could give them any advice, and I said, well, look or observe how your prospective spouse treats other people when you're out and about. Observe how he or she treats your parents, talks to her parents, or with her parents. Observe how they treat waiters or waitresses when you go out to eat, and it can tell you a lot about the person. It was just something that had been told to me, and it kind of makes sense. You'll learn things after you get married. You think you know everything about the other person. No, you don't. You don't. You don't know everything, and you're going to learn. After years and years and years, you're going to still be learning. And that's good. There's nothing wrong with that. But just as FYI, just a piece of advice. Marriage is total self-giving. It's free. In other words, you're making that decision of your own free will, faithful, and fruitful. I call it fruitful of intent. And what I mean by that is, you were talking about children. I remember when we got married, the priest asked us all those things. If you have children, are you going to bring them up in the Catholic Church? And of course, I agreed to that. And we ended up not having any children. Well, we have one, but we lost it after about 2 years, and so I think he's in heaven now. Anyway, but we never have any more. But so that's why I say fruitful. And it was our intention to have children, but it just wasn't to be. And you got to, you've got to think about things. I know my own parents. My dad told me that when he married my mom, they didn't think they were going to be able to have any children because my mom only had one ovary, and they didn't think that she'd be able to have any children. Well, she ended up with 2, two boys.
I have to tell you, my father was in the Marines during the Second World War, and he got malaria. He was in the Solomon Islands, he got malaria. And the doctor told him that he would never have children. And my mother, and of course, when you go to marry somebody, you have to reveal this.
Right.
You know, the doctors told me that I can't have children. And my mother's father laughed. My mother brought safely to birth 9 children from my father. She miscarried 2. So I hate to think of what it had been like if he'd been fertile.
Agreed. God
Yes.
had other plans, didn't
Yes,
he?
but that's something, you know.
Yeah.
You never know.
You never know.
You
You're
don't
exactly
know
right.
what God's plan is.
You're absolutely right. You really, you just don't. You know, and my wife's a little older than I am, and you know, I discussed with my dad especially. I was really close with my dad. You know, but it was just easier for me to talk to my dad. And he said, well, you know now, you know, and he was very accepting, but you know, her being older than I was, you got to realize, you know, she's almost 10 years older than I am, almost. And says, you know, when you're 60, she'll be 70. And I said, but my point in this is, I was still, you know, that didn't faze me. I was not, I loved her, and I knew, you know, that I wanted to marry her. I guess my point in all this is, don't rush, take your time, and ask questions. You know, that's okay. You know, that it's okay to ask questions. I know people that have been right up to the point of just about ready to get married, and then they just start having I know one guy at the very last minute, he just, I won't say it's cold feet. He got to thinking about some things, and he said, this is not, this isn't right. This is something that I can't, you know what I mean? And I don't really know exactly what it was, but it's not something to be rushed into. But
And
when
if
you're ready,
you go to those marriage prep classes,
yeah,
there have been people that going to those prep classes, I think, what does that take, 6 months? That you go to those things now? Is it 6 months prior to your wedding? You go to those classes up until then?
You could take it faster if you chose, but it took us at least 3 months to do everything.
Okay, and,
Yeah,
but
we had to do that too.
it's over a period of time, and I had somebody,
marriage encounter.
I had somebody in the parish tell me that while they were part of the marriage class, there was a girl who decided no. You know, about halfway through, the topics that they discussed, because they discuss everything about all the facets of marriage are discussed and dealt with, and there were things that were coming up that were being discussed, and she realized that she was not going to be a good match with this guy because of what was being talked about, and
And that's when you want to catch it.
exactly.
You don't want to wait till after you're married and then realize, you know, that's the purpose of having these marriage encounters.
Yes,
You know, so,
it's called discernment.
discernment. Yeah. Okay. Well, I was gonna show video, but I don't think we have time to do it. But I'm gonna recommend it to you. I chose, his father Mike has a video, well, he has got a bunch of them, but the one I was gonna show was, can a Catholic marry a non-Catholic? And of course, they can, but he talks about, it's very short. It's only about 10, 12 minutes long.
Got time for it.
Huh?
Unless you got a bunch of other stuff, we probably got time.
No, not really. I don't have a lot of other stuff. I didn't know how long the boots were.
Just don't want something.
So, yeah, if y'all wanna see that, I just picked that one because that was kind of my story, so.
Short answer is, yeah, you can.
Can you,
Here's the
like, here,
conditions for that.
Catholic married,
So
not
if you're
Catholic.
Catholic, can you marry someone who's not Catholic? Yeah, you have to get married in the Catholic Church. If you don't get married in the Catholic Church, you need express permission from your bishop to be married according to another rite outside of the Catholic Church. If you do get married in the Catholic Church, and you're the Catholic party, you're the Catholic spouse, you have to make what we call in our diocese a prenuptial declaration and promise. And that sounds intimidating, but basically 3 parts. It says, I reaffirm my faith in Jesus Christ, and with God's help, I intend to continue living out that faith in the Catholic Church. So basically, I'm Catholic, plan on being Catholic the rest of my life. Number 2 is, at the same time, I acknowledge the respect I owe to the conscience of my future partner in marriage. They don't believe what I believe, but I respect them and I honor them. Number 3 is, for my part, I will see to it that I do everything I can to have our children baptized and educated as Catholics. So, again, 3 things. Catholic, plan on being Catholic. I respect the future partner, my future spouse in marriage. 3rd, when it comes down to kids, where I stand is I want to have them baptized and educated as Catholics. That's not taking any responsibility or authority away from your spouse. It's just making it very clear that when it comes down to it, this is where I'm going to stand. This is what I want. The person who's willing to sign that and go through all the marriage prep and stuff like that, it is possible for a Catholic to marry a non-Catholic. All that's to say, this is not a sin issue, right? Sometimes there's sin issues, like that's a wrong thing to do. It's not a sin issue, but it is a wisdom issue. And it's a really critical distinction I want to make. I want to hear this, I know maybe in the comments and everything below, people saying like, wait a second, I know a couple that he's not Catholic, she is, and they're awesome. They're so good, and he helps her out a ton. Like, great. Or someone who's going to say, well, I know 2 people who are super Catholic, really devoted, and it did not work out. Like, I understand. So is it impossible for a couple who's Catholic and not Catholic to work out? Absolutely not. Is it guaranteed that a couple who is both, they are both Catholic, that it's definitely going to work out? No, it's not, unfortunately. But this is still a wisdom issue. And I remember when it came across kind of in my life, really, really up front, in my first year of priesthood, there were 2 couples. They both married in their 20 or 30 years, anniversaries. And I spoke to these 2 couples, 2 different occasions, completely unrelated to each other within the space of 2 weeks. And they both said the same thing. I wasn't even like digging for it. They just volunteered their information. The one Catholic party said, yeah, I love my husband, but and I love our kids. But if I had to do it over again, I would have married someone who was Catholic. And the other person, the 2 weeks later, another couple said the exact same thing. I remember thinking both times, like, oh, this is awkward because your spouse is right there. But I noticed that their spouses were not. And they agreed and said, yeah, because marriage is hard enough. It's difficult enough to be married to someone that if you're not united in the most core area of your life, it makes it even more difficult. And so again, this is not a sin issue, but it is a wisdom issue. Because it's a wisdom issue, it means that moving forward in a relationship with someone who's not Catholic is going to mean you have to be wise. And one of the ways we're wise is if we know what's the end of marriage, what's the goal of marriage in the first place. Well, the church offers us 2 ends of marriage, or 2 reasons marriage exists. One is for the good of the couple, the good of the spouses. The other is for the procreation and education of children. So children are born and they're raised as Catholics. Like that's the ends of marriage. I mean, born and raised, right? But in Catholic context, as Catholics. So think about this, the good of the couple. Hopefully the person you're dating, or person you're considering dating, or person you're discerning marriage with, is good for you, right? Hopefully they're generous and kind, and they're patient with you, and they help you become more generous and more kind and more patient. And maybe they're okay with you living out your faith. That's great. Yeah, I'm totally okay with you going to Mass. I'm even sometimes okay going with you to Mass. Obviously, you have some boundaries when it comes to physical intimacy, and they're okay. They're totally okay with your physical boundaries. Those are all good things. Question, wisdom. Do you want someone who is just okay with you living out your faith, or do you want someone who's going to help you live out your faith? Do you want someone who's okay with you practicing, following after Jesus in the Catholic Church, or do you want someone who's going to help you follow Jesus in the Catholic Church? We know this, right? There's some days when you're like, yeah, I'm totally the strong one, and that's great, that's all I need. They're good, they're okay with it. But there's also days when you're like, oh man, I need some help. But I can't look to my partner in life for help because they're not there to help me grow. They're just okay with my growth. Is this person going to help you grow in your relationship with Jesus in the Catholic Church? Because otherwise, what's it going to be? I mean, honestly, think about this. On the shallow end, it means, okay, we go to Sunday Mass, maybe they're okay with it right now, but what about when go golfing early this morning. No, we have to wear masks. Fine. Or every time we sit there in church with them, or with her, and the priest says something stupid, because priests say stuff that's stupid sometimes, or the choir's off, or whatever, and you're just groaning inside, and just thinking like, what are they thinking about this? You can't even enter into prayer because you're wondering what they're thinking the entire time, because they're okay with this, but they're not helping, they're not like all on board with this whole thing. Again, that doesn't mean they're bad. Again, this is massively important. Now, I skipped this when I did the introduction. When it comes to Catholic marrying a non-Catholic, that's not to say a first-class Christian marrying a second-class Christian. That is not what I mean to imply in any way, shape, or form. That non-Catholic Christians, we believe, are our full brothers and sisters in the Lord. We're separated, brethren, but they're just as much sons and daughters of God, just as much brothers and sisters. So I don't mean to talk about this in this context of like being like second. It sounds like I'm saying like second class. I don't mean that in any way. I just mean there are a lot of things that unite us, but there's also things that divide us, and those things that divide us need to be addressed. Okay, back to our show. The other is the good of the children, or to procreate and educate, right? To have our children raised as Catholics. Now we know statistically that a lot of kids leave the faith when they turn 18, 19, 20. Those statistics are even greater when their mom and dad aren't united in their Catholic faith. But even think practically about this. And I was thinking about, I remember talking with a young woman. She was one of our students, and she was dating, I had known her and her family ever since they were kids, but she was dating a guy on campus who she was discerning marriage with, and he wasn't Catholic. And at one point, she's like, so what's the big deal anyways? And I said, okay, here's the deal. A lot of reasons, but here's one that might mean something to you. I know that you and your brothers and sisters, when you went through your adolescent phase, you were not always super excited about going to Sunday Mass. And so your mom and dad, who were devoted Catholics, had to fight with you tooth and nail every single Sunday to get you up, to get you out the door, to get you off to Mass. Now imagine if your dad didn't care, but your mom was the faithful one. Not only would she have to fight with you to get you up and out the door and off to Mass, but this whole time she'd have to fight with her husband to get him up, to get him out the door, get him out to Mass. Like, do you want that to be the rest of your life? And that's just, again, that's just getting off to Mass. What happens when you introduce your spouse to the idea of like, oh, here's the reality as Catholics, we don't use contraception. So, surprise, this is going to cost you something too. Now, they can be okay with that, or they can help you grow in that. Last-ish thing. I remember reading a bunch of stuff from marriage counselors. This couple were talking about the 4 deal breakers. These are 4 issues that could potentially be deal breakers. One is faith. One is family, like extended family issues and stuff. Do you want kids? You don't want kids, that kind of thing. One is finances, and the other is intimacy stuff. So like sexuality issues. And they said that every one of these, if a couple can't come to a place of unity on it, that is potentially a deal breaker. Like if you can't come to a place of unity when it comes to your extended family or your own family, then it's worth it to say, pump the brakes and go, would it be wise for me to be yoked with a person that we see things really differently when it comes to family, or when it comes to our finances? And when it comes to faith, that gets to be a big deal because it is a big deal. Now, again, I'm not saying you have to break up, but I'm saying that if you did over faith, that's not you being overly picky. Now, I'm not saying you have to break up, but I do think here's what should happen. You should communicate to your future spouse or to the person you're dating that, when it comes down to it, my dream would be to marry someone who I share the faith with. My dream is to marry someone who's a passionate Catholic. That's not an ultimatum. That's simply you clearly communicating what you want out of your marriage. And I think that's really smart to be able to say, to be upfront with. Because I know a ton of couples, again, here's my anecdotal evidence, last thing. A ton of couples who on our campus who, that's what it was. It was, one of them is passionately Catholic, the other one is either passionately evangelical or nothing, like agnostic or atheist. And over the course of the relationship, they were wives. Now, there's such thing as rushing in, like, I don't know why you're running up that tree, I don't get it. But they've come to know who Jesus is. They've come to love the church, and they've become Catholic. And it's like one of the amazing things to see them grow, not only in their love for each other, but also to see they can totally grow in unity. But how it started because the Catholic party said, here's what I would love. I'm not going to pressure you into this. I can't give you my faith. What I would love for my future spouse, whoever that is, to be united with me in loving Jesus in the Catholic Church. And I think that's not expecting too much. And I think that it's actually a really good way to be really clear about what you really want. I don't know, maybe I'm stupid, maybe I'm dumb. That's kind of what I have to say about this though. If you disagree, you can, don't give it a thumbs down. Thumbs downs are stupid. Here's why they're stupid, because I don't know why you gave me a thumbs down. It's because I didn't shave today, I didn't shave today. But type why you disagree.
She's crazy.
I can tell you that in my case, and then y'all can do your cahoots. The issue of me not being Catholic was never a problem in our marriage. Because I went, like I said, I went 27 years. I started going with her to the Catholic Church in Clemson. And it never was an issue. She was very, she never pushed me. It was my decision. And after going 27 years, I never once took the Eucharist out of respect for the church because I wasn't Catholic. And different people handle it different ways, but I guess what I leave you with is this. Talk to God, and God will answer you. Give him a chance to answer you, but you got to talk to him first and just be open to it. So I'll leave it with that. And I think you're going to do your cahoots now.
Bam, and we're going. 3, 2, 1. Quiz. What are the 4 key aspects that must be reflected in a Christian marriage? Total, faithful, fruitful, loving. Free, total, loving, faithful. Committed, faithful, total, free. Free, total, faithful, fruitful. And 5 of you got it right. It is free, total, faithful, and fruitful. Those were the 4 aspects that the video went over that need to be reflected in marriage. Kristen, Dakota, John, Rod, and Brad. Multi-select. The sacrament of matrimony, select all that are true. Helps couple grow in sacrificial love and unity. The priest is the minister of the sacrament. Is permanent and must take place in the church. Gives the grace to love each other with the love of Christ for his church. And the correct answer are all of them except for the blue. We mentioned that in class, the priest isn't the minister of the sacrament. Actually, the minister of the sacrament are the husband and the wife. So all of them except that one would be the right ones. one or both people were either coerced or already married in a sacred vow. There was a significant deceit on one or both parties. There was no intention to remain faithful, or marriage intent was not for it to be permanent. And all of them are right. Any question about that one? But those are all reasons why a valid marriage may not have taken place. Coercion, significant deceit, no intention to remain faithful, or that, no intention for it to be permanent. Tristan, John, Brad, Dakota, Audrey, quiz, multi-select. Who may validly marry? Select all that are true. Close relatives, two baptized people of the opposite sex, two people internally and externally free, two people of sufficient age. Everything except for the red. Close relatives may not marry. And I listened to Father Chris on marriage, and I was a little surprised of the sufficient age. Does anybody know what sufficient age for the man and for the woman are, as far as the Catholic Church is concerned?
No.
Guy has to be at least 16, and the woman has to be at least 14.
Well, you've got a church that is worldwide. Yeah. There are countries where that would be acceptable.
But then again, Mary was 14, right? So, you know.
Yeah.
Tristan, John, Brad, Dakota, Audrey. And Brad's on fire. He's got flames by him. Quiz, multi-select. What do husbands and wives receive in matrimony? Select all that are true. A Catholic contract, a covenant relationship with each other, sanctifying grace to help them fulfill their marital covenant, grace to perfect their love and to welcome and educate their children. All of them except the red are correct. Not a Catholic contract. It's not,
It's not a prenup.
no.
It's not a contract.
Oh, Brad's burning it up still. Tristan, Brad, John, Al, Dakota. True or false? The sacrament of holy orders was entrusted by Jesus to his apostles. And that is true, and everybody got it right. Good job, class. So nobody moved. And Tristan's on fire. Quiz, multi-select. Holy Orders continues today through the ordained ministry of select all that are true. Bishops, lectors, it's just all drawing, deacons, or priests. All but the blue. Tristan, Brad, Ella, Dakota, Alyssa. True or false? Bishops and priests in the West are non-celibate. I didn't mean to say that. Okay. Bishops and priests in the West are non-celibate. This is grounded in Christ. Priests are married to the church. I think I messed up my own question.
Yes, you did. Yes, it's false.
Yeah, it's false. And I gave it away because I said non-celibate. No, that's not right. So, yeah. So I messed my own question up. Sorry about that. Podium time, third place goes to Alyssa. Second place goes to Brad. And first place goes to Tristan. And our rest is bye-bye. Thank you.
We have to be here at the church on Saturday to practice for the baptism.
Hold on, I'll answer that in just a second. Next week's class is still continuing on with Symbolon. So the homework will be watching the Symbolon video on the moral teaching of the Catholic Church. Will be next week. Yeah, and the following Tuesday will be off because that must be Fat Tuesday. Yep, pancake supper.
I have a work trip Tuesday.
Oh, this coming Thursday? This coming Tuesday? Okay.
We're gonna come with our own questions.
Yep, everybody, the pressure's on. Tristan will not be at class next week. So y'all, when you're watching the video, pen and paper in hand and write down questions. You got it?
Yeah.
You gotta carry the class next week. No pressure.
Yeah, you guys have to step up now.
At least the
Yeah, at least he told us, right? So we're not sitting here staring